soldiers marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe. Forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempests rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and o'er thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely. Assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O men of God, have done with lesser things. Give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod. As brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God.
evening. Let's advice, shall we? I'm not your normal teacher. Levi had to take Amy to the emergency room and he asked me to fill in. So that's what I'm doing. I hope and pray that you will bear with me since I got dropped in like 5 minutes before I started. I wasn't gonna look something up for class. I don't want that because I don't know if I can use that. Okay. So he does not have Genesis. Perfect. Thought maybe he would have Genesis. Okay. I am doing the Genesis class. Levi asked me to fill in. He'll probably go over some of the stuff that I didn't hit this week. But we're in the book of Genesis nonetheless, and the last couple of chapters we saw Joseph is in Egypt. He gets sold in chapter 37. Chapter 39, that's the kerfuffle of Potiphar. He's thrown in jail. He interprets the butler and the baker's dream. The butler's exalted, the baker's killed, and so 2 years go by, and the butler's at Pharaoh's right hand, and Pharaoh himself has visions. Pharaoh sees these 5 fat cows and 5 skinny cows, and then five plump ears of grain and 5 lean ears of grain, and basically Joseph gives that interpretation, and basically there's going to be 5 years of plenty, 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And so that results in his brothers going down to Egypt, and this gets us to last week where they came down to Egypt. Joseph accuses them of being spies. They say, no, we're not spies. And yes, 7, thank you. Joseph says, I ended up correcting myself afterward, but Joseph says, you're spies, we're not spies. And then he asks them certain questions about their family, and they say, well, there's 13 of us, one's at home and one is not. So he keeps them overnight and then keeps Simeon for safekeeping while they go out and get their brother Benjamin. They say, don't come back until you get Benjamin. And so meanwhile, while they're traveling back, they find in their sacks the money they supposedly used to pay for the provisions back home, and they say bodyguards really after us. All the while, they have this pent up guilt about Joseph all those years. And they bought their own lie because they told Joseph he's one is not. And so, anyways, uh, back to where we were, they get home and recount to Jacob everything that happened. And they said, we can't go back there unless Benjamin goes with us. And Jacob, of course, is like, no, he's not going with you guys. And so that drops it until the famine's bad again, and Jacob begrudgingly lets Benjamin go. And then when they go back, they take extra money to replace the money that was mistakenly stolen. And to their surprise, when we come back, Joseph has a feast laid out for them, and they are really surprised for twofold. They know who's the oldest or youngest because the seating's that way, and also he's an Egyptian, and Egyptians don't dine with Hebrews. And so you have that twofold tip that Joseph knows. Joseph knows their ages, and Egyptians don't usually sit with Hebrews. And then after dinner, they go back and Joseph tests their brothers in 44 and says, look, fill their sacks up again, but instead, in the youngest son, put my golden cup, my silver cup. And to make a long review short, they get caught, they're back, and they say, look, we really don't have a defense. God has been very foolish to us. What shall we speak? And so what Joseph wants to happen is have Benjamin stay and go get your have Benjamin stay to pay for his cup. And Judah says, no, don't do that to my father. And then that's basically where we leave off in chapter 45. In chapter 45, after hearing the sob story of Judah, that no, please take me instead, don't take Benjamin, that'll kill our father, Joseph finally reveals his brothers, reveals himself to his brothers. That was a long review. Is there any questions or comments over that before we get into some of the text today? So when Joseph could no longer control himself, all of this gets to Joseph, all the emotional strain gets to Joseph, and he cries, make everybody go out from me. Leave me alone. And he does this so that he could reveal himself to his brothers. And so he cries so loud that the Egyptians heard it and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Everybody knew. Everybody heard this heartfelt reunion. And so Joseph lays it out, finally revealing himself. I am Joseph. Is my father okay? And his brothers are just shocked. And they're really dismayed. I think maybe that's kind of a watered down version, or not. I shouldn't say that. Understatement. They're terrified. Because here they were for 13 years, was it? Let's see. I think it was for longer than that. But for a long time, believing that Joseph is dead, that they believe their own lie. And here he says, I'm Joseph. Is my father alive? And his brothers could not believe it. So Joseph said, come near. And they came near, and he affirms to them again, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God has sent me before you to preserve life. Notice Joseph's growth here. Notice Joseph's perspective. His experience influenced his perspective. He says, don't be mad at yourselves. God sent me to save your life. Basically, preserve life. Look what God did through what you did. For the famine has been in the land 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. Don't be angry with yourselves. God has used this so that I can preserve you and preserve our family seed. That's kind of the idea you get. Preserve your remnant on the earth. That's the purpose. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and Lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Great perspective, and also it shows that Joseph has two aspects in his mind. He's aware of two realities. Was Joseph not aware that his brothers sold him? Well, of course he was. But ultimately, it was God who moved the pieces, and it was God's will, he says. God placed me here. It's the will of God so that I can be a father. And he's also made me a father of Pharaoh and lord of all his house and ruler over all the land of Egypt. So God sent me to Egypt made me ruler. God did it through your hands. He sees the plan of God in this. Perhaps that's why Potiphar noticed in chapter 39 that he's blessed. Because he kept the big picture. You may have sent me, you may have sold me, but God sent me. This was God's plan. So he says, now, hurry and go to my father, say, thus says your son Joseph. God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me and do not tarry, and live in the land of Goshen, your descendants and your herds. And I'm going to provide for you, for there's 5 years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have do not come to poverty. And so he says, go, bring Joseph and tell him to come. I'm going to preserve you. And then he says, and now your eyes see, and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see, that it is my mouth that speaks to you. It's not somebody else. Now you know who I am. Now you have assurance that it's me. You're not going to be lying to your father. So you must tell, he tells them, verse 13, you must tell my father of all my honor in Egypt and all that you have seen. Hurry and bring my father down. So he fell upon his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck and kissed all his brothers and wept upon them. After that, his brothers talked with him more. And so he says, he revealed himself and basically says, come stay here, for the famine there's 5 more years of this famine, it's gonna get back. And then he talks some more. So, the report, the weeping was heard throughout all Egypt. Now, the report comes. Joseph's brothers have come and pleased Pharaoh and his servants. This is just my speculation, but why do you think it pleased Pharaoh and his servants? In verse 16, to know that Joseph's brothers have come. Any thoughts? It may be, and this is a may, it doesn't say this, it may be that Pharaoh was well aware of the situation. Maybe Joseph had told the Pharaoh. Now, I can't support that, but nonetheless, Pharaoh hears that his brothers have come to Egypt, and Pharaoh's pleased. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, tell your brothers, do this, load your beasts and go back to the land of Canaan. Take your father and your households and come to me, and I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, usually the fat of the land. So Pharaoh gives his blessing. I I'm on board with this. He's pleased with this. He's united with Joseph. Interesting. I don't know. And so, uh, he says to Joseph, Pharaoh says to Joseph, and you, Joseph, are commanded to say, do this: take wagons from the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. Have no concern for your goods. Leave your goods there, basically, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. So they did so, and Joseph gave them wagons according to the command of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh gave provisions for their journey. And in verse 22, to each and all of them he gave a change of clothes. But to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothes. The Benjamin gets extra treatment here. I don't know if there is anything to that other than he got special treatment. So he sent his father as follows: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provisions for his father on the journey. Then he sent his brothers away and departed, and he said to them, do not quarrel on the way. Now, why would he say that? The temptation might have been, don't beat yourself up over what happened to me. And so I think that's what's going on there. So they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to their father, and they told him, Joseph is still alive, and he's ruler over all the land of Egypt. And his heart became numb, for he did not believe them. That's unbelievable. For how many years? A long time. Your son, you're Joseph, and you think your son is as good as dead. And then your sons go home and say, guess what? Joseph's still alive. He's head over all the land of Egypt. He couldn't believe it. But he had evidence. When they told him all the words of Joseph, which he had said to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. I mean, that's ecstatic. Having a son who you thought was dead, in a sense, raised back to life. That would revive any father. In fact, this is similar language at the end of 37 when the brothers tell him Joseph died. He said he says this: then Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his son many days. All his son and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, no, I shall go down to Sheol to my son mourning. Thus his father wept. And so when just his brothers led him to believe he'd been killed, is despair. But now, when he finds out Joseph is alive, uh, his spirit revives. Israel said, "It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." And so, that's where chapter 46 comes up. Any questions or comments on chapter 45? All right. We continue. We've still got time. Genesis 46. So Israel. Who's Israel again? Who's Israel? Jacob, right. His name was changed in chapter 26. 28. Yeah, 28 on his way to Laban. In 28 verse maybe not. Was that 29 when he wrestled with God? Let's see. Let's see. Sorry. Genesis 32. I think it was. Uh, Genesis 32. Yeah, when Jacob wrestles with God, he changes his name in Genesis 32:28 and gives the blessing. And so now he's called Jacob, Israel. So Israel took his journey with all that he had, came to Beersheba, stopped to offer sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And so this is a consistent practice. The patriarchs stopped to offer to God. That's important. Worship was important in the lives of the patriarchs. So God spoke to Israel again in a vision, like he spoke to him in chapter 32. Jacob, Jacob, here I am. Interesting connection to Genesis 22 here in Genesis chapter 22. When Abraham is called to offer Isaac, he is called a similar way. Abraham, here I am. And so that's a similar passage there. So he reassures them, him. Don't be afraid. I'm the God of your father. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt. I'm going to make you a great nation. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you back up again, and you'll be with Joseph. Joseph's hand will close your eyes. So Jacob sent out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones, and their wives in the wagons. They also carried their livestock and their goods that they gained in the land of Canaan and came into Egypt. Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters. Everybody comes in, all his offspring he brought with him into Egypt. So they all go down to Egypt. Now, we have a list in Genesis 46 of those who came into Egypt, Jacob and his sons, and we have the list of the names of those who came into Egypt with Jacob, Reuben's sons, Simeon's sons, Levi's sons, Judah's sons. Judah's sons, Ur and Onan died in the land of Canaan. Perez's sons, Issachar's sons. So you know, you get the idea of how much time has passed, right? Now they all have families. Zebulun's sons. So they all go down to Egypt. And there's 33 of them. Gad's sons, Asher's sons, and the sons from Zilpah, the descendants from Zilpah were 16 persons. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, was Joseph and Benjamin, and so we have Joseph's already in Egypt, Benjamin's coming, and so part of this is just recounting who begot who, and so we have Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, the wife of the priest, on board to him. We have Benjamin's sons. Now we have the sons of Rachel and their families. Sons of Dan, Naphtali. Then we have Bilhah's sons. Everybody's coming in. All the persons belonging to Jacob who came into Egypt, who were his own descendants, not including Jacob's wives, were 66 persons in all. So quite a big crowd going into Egypt here. And the sons of Joseph who were born to him in Egypt were two. All the persons of the house of Jacob who came into Egypt were 70. So that's that's all who traveled down to Egypt. Now in 20 through the rest of the chapter, Jacob and Joseph reunite. He had sent Judah out of him to Joseph to show the way. So Judah's kind of leading the way into Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. He presented to himself to him, fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. And then Israel's like, all right, now I'm ready to die since I've seen you and know you're still alive. And so Joseph says, I'm going to go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my brothers and my father's household who were in the land of Canaan have come to me, and the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? You shall say, your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. So say, when Pharaoh says, what are you saying, your shepherds, so that you can dwell in the land of Goshen? Because basically, if I understand this right, they're not going to let you in Egypt because they don't like the Hebrews. Alright, that's chapter 46. Any comments, questions about chapter 46? I will say this, that the land of Goshen was a fertile place right by water, the water, and Goshen became the separatory spot between the Israelites and the Egyptians during the time of Moses. That started here. And if you remember with the 10 plagues, it was over all Egypt, but it didn't touch the land of Goshen. There's some of the place to make that distinction. So that gets brought over. Alright, chapter 47. Whoops. I'm like, that looks oddly familiar. So Joseph comes in and tells Pharaoh, my father and my brothers and my flocks and herds and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen. And so from among his brothers he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. 5 of his brothers are standing before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh says, what's your occupation? And they said, just like Joseph told them to say in 46, we are shepherds. And that was true, that the people of Israel, the patriarchs were very nomadic. They moved around from place to place. They were indeed shepherds. So they weren't saying anything false here by any means. So they also said to Pharaoh, "We have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for famine is severe in the land of Canaan, and now please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph's brothers, "You and your brothers have your father and your brothers have come to you. So let us dwell." And then Pharaoh says, "They're here." And Pharaoh is very gracious. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen, and if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock. Get them settled in, get them to work, he says. Put them in charge. Pharaoh's actually uh, giving Joseph's brothers a great honor here by saying, "Put them in charge of my livestock, my things." Pharaoh trusts Joseph, and therefore Pharaoh also trusts Joseph's family. And so we see that playing out. Then Joseph brought in Jacob his father and stood before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed him. And Pharaoh and Jacob start talking. And Pharaoh asked him, "How many are the days of the years of your life?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of my years of my sojournings are 130, and few and evil have been the days of the years of my life." Doesn't that summarize the life of Jacob? Being deceived by Laban, being deceived by his own sons, being cast out, uh, running from Esau, making up with Esau. I think this is a statement of honesty. "And they had not attained to the days of the life of my fathers and the days of their sojournings. I'm not that old yet," he says. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went up in the presence of Pharaoh. Interesting, Pharaoh gets a blessing from Jacob. Well, the king gets the blessing from the father of the king. And maybe that's just a way of saying thank you for taking care of my son, doing so much for him. Yeah, yes, he was a slave in Egypt, but he also got promoted. You know, I think this is Jacob's way of saying thank you for that. So Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave them in possession in the land of Egypt, the best of the land, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided for his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with food according to the number of their dependents. Now, here's the famine. There was no food in all the land, for the famine was very severe, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine. And this is where it gets a little bit desperate. So Joseph gathered all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan in exchange for the grain that they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan. All the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? For our money is gone." And so the famine's bad. They first say, give me your land. And then all the land's gone. And they come back and say, "Look, why should we die before your eyes? Because our money is gone." And so Joseph said, give me your livestock. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, their donkeys, their flocks, their herds, and he supplied them with food in exchange for all the livestock that year. So he has their lands, their livestock, and if I remember correctly, it gets worse. And when that year was ended, they came to him the following year and said to him, "We will we will not hide from my Lord that our money is all spent. We're broke, Joseph. The herds, the herds of livestock are my Lord's. There's nothing left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our land. You're gonna have to take our bodies if you want something else, Joseph. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for food." So the famine's so severe that the Egyptians say, and all the people of the land say, "All right, take our land, take our livestock, and take us for servants. We don't have any more money." And the famine's just getting worse. And so why should we die? Buy us and our land for food. With our land will be servants to Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live, and that, that the land might be desolate. This could be taken two ways. They're either saying, give us grain so that we may live and not die. But it's also the possibility when I read this, they're saying, look, we just want to survive so that we can raise up offspring, so that the land be not desolate, so that there's a future in the land of Egypt. We just want to survive this. And so Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. So Pharaoh owns all of Egypt now. For all the Egyptians sold their fields because the famine was severe on them, the land became Pharaoh. Boy, this is a severe famine, isn't it? They're selling themselves, their lands, all just to preserve seed so that they don't die of hunger. As for the people, well, he made servants of them. But the land of the priests, he did not buy. For the priests had a fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived on the allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore, they did not sell their land. So the priests had an agreement already with Pharaoh that this would be Pharaoh's priests, Pharaoh's men, the Egyptian priest. Obviously, the law of Moses didn't exist yet. So Pharaoh's priests are protected. Then Joseph said to the people, Behold, I have this day bought you a new land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. I guess that answers my question. Uh, Up here, I said the possibility is that, that uh, the, up here I said the seed, that they asked about the seed. Well, they're asking for food here. The, uh, and so Joseph said, Here's the seed. Where did they say that? Give us seed that we may live and not die, and that the land may not be desolate. 47:19. So they're talking about grain there. And so here's the seed. And at harvest you shall give a fifth to it back to Pharaoh, and 4 fifths shall be your own as seed for the field, as food for yourselves and your household, as food for your little ones. You're going to have to pay a tax. I'm being gracious. You're going to have to give this seed back. And they said, You saved their lives, man. Please, my lord, we will be servants to Pharaoh. Sure. So Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, and as it stands this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. The land of the priests alone did not become Pharaoh's. And so this is where the idea in Egypt in modern times of giving the fifth to Pharaoh. That was the rule when Joseph made the agreement with the Egyptians during the famine. So thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they gained possession in it, and were fruitful and multiplied greatly. This is going to be a problem when we get to Exodus, because they're going to continue to multiply, and so much so that the new Pharaoh is intimidated and starts killing the babies. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So in the days of Jacob, the years of his life were 147 years. And then the time drew near when Israel must die. He called his son Joseph and said to him, If now I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt. Remember back in chapter 24 when Abraham when Abraham is trying to get a wife for Isaac, he also says, Put your hand under my thigh and promise that you will not get Isaac a wife from the pagan nations. Well, this is implemented here also in Genesis 47:29. And so he says, Don't bury me in Egypt, but let me die with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place. He answered, I will do as you said. And he said to him, Swear to me. And he swore to him. Thus Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed. Now, I don't know if that means he died. I think that means he laid down, because the next chapter is Israel blessing Ephraim and Manasseh, and then the next chapter is Israel blessing his sons. And so either A, he died here, and those chapters are not chronological, or B, he simply laid down. And so I wasn't going to say, after the Exodus, we do read of them burying the bones of Joseph. So that's all the time we have. We made it to the top of the hour, and we made it through chapter 47. Any questions or comments? Thank you for bearing with me, as I'm not normally the teacher. I hope that was helpful. Levi is planning on coming back next week to, Lord willing, finish the study. You're welcome, Teresa. Thank you all so much for being here. And remember, as you walk this day, may you study to show yourself approved. This has been Study to Show Yourself Approved, beginning at the beginning. God bless.